नन्ही सी हसी भोली सी खुशी फूलों सी वो बाहें भूल गए जब देश ने दी आवाज हमें हम घर की राहें भूल गए
Help yourself by helping others. Hello, friends. I am your host, Nafisa Nazneen, welcoming you all to a brand new episode, which is all about my unsung heroes. This is a lovely episode, and guess what? I have got an amazing guest with me, and he is none other than I am his fan. Yes, I follow him, I admire him, and I respect him a lot. So allow me to introduce him. Fine? So let's begin. I'll read his brief introduction for all you guys over there. So just listen. He is Group Captain Sharad Sharma, an Air Force veteran, having supernetted in May this year, that is 2020, and in his 31.5 years of service, the first 14 years were engaged as a fighter pilot, flying the MiG 21 and MiG 27 in frontline squadrons. He has held staff trainings and command appointments both intra-service as well as across inter-service organizations with the Army as well as the Indian Navy. He is an alumni of prestigious Defense Service Staff College at Wellington, the Nilgiris, and has served the former President of India, late Pranab Mukherjee, as the Deputy Military Secretary in the President's Secretariat at Rashtrapati Bhavan. He is also a certified trainer from Hyderabad based IATD Trellis from and that is the place where we met actually. And then what else? This introduction is really something breathtaking for me to introduce him over here to my show, Basics to Bloom podcast. So, sir, I am welcoming you for my show today and thank you for giving your valuable time. So, how was your introduction, first of all? Did you
Oh,
like it?
first of all, thank you so much for your kind words. When you asked me to introduce, write something for myself, I think you have understood the whole concept pretty good. And very much, yes, I have had inter-service experience. I've had my flying as a fighter pilot. I've served the late former president of India. And yes, we met in the certified trainer program last year.
Yeah. And I am your fan. That also I'd like to tell my
It's always been so.
audience. Yeah, he is amazing, friends. Believe me, a lovely. I mean, so down to earth. I have never seen such a lovely person. So let's begin with the question and answer session. Are you ready for that?
Yes, please.
Okay, fine. So tell me, sir, when were you drafted for your service with the Indian Air Force? I mean, the year, the date.
Oh, okay. So we go back to 1987 when, as an NCC cadet, I was one of the few in all over India who was selected to, after our group interviews and medical tests, a few of us clear the thing and go into training. So my training started in 87, and by end of 88, I was in the fighter stream of the Indian Air Force.
Wow, great. Thank you. My next question is what do you remember about the day you enlisted?
Yeah, during our training, very much excited to actually, because that was our passion and our dreams as a growing up teenager, to be able to take to the skies and fly. And most importantly, what I can remember out of our training days is, helping each other cope up with the challenges. Because at the ab initio level, each flight is a new experience as compared to our trainers, our instructors who were already experienced pilots. But whenever you flew alone and you build up your experience, it was always the first time for every mission. So we were helping each other cope up with those challenges and collectively gaining our expertise. And that is how I remember my training days, helping one another.
That's awesome. That's your favorite quote also, right? That help yourself to help others. Amazing. So, sir, I just want to know more, like how this dream came. I mean, you have any influence? I mean, you grew up admiring somebody, or how you thought of becoming, joining the Indian Air Force and coming up to such great, I mean, level where you are.
That's an interesting question because the aims kept changing. In 1979, in my 8th standard, I had actually joined the Boy Scouts in the school.
Okay.
Wearing that uniform at at a young age of 11, I was very clear that this is going to be my life. And of course, you met some relatives or some friends, uncles, grown-ups who were already in the armed forces. And of course, this is I'm talking about very much the pre-internet era. We were growing up in our building, and I'm talking about Mumbai, and the uniform, the disciplined way of life, the very focused mindset, and the satisfaction of really contributing to your country's security and growth. So all this continued growing over the years, and as I finished my 10th standard, my school leaving certificate and things like that, I joined the NCC Air Wing, and that's where the nucleus of our training as an NCC cadet, and also the inner feeling of wanting to fly. And so very much our training in the NCC helped us cope with those desires and passion. And by 86, 87, it was absolutely certain that I could not think of anything else but to try for the Indian Air Force.
Wow, that's highly inspiring, and I can relate. Means we all have such type of dreams during our school ages, but living those dreams is something amazing, and you have attained that. So I can really figure out how much excitement and joyous life you must have led. Of course, it is challenging. Moving on to my next question. How did you tell your family and friends that you were joining the military, the Indian Defense, or say Indian Air Force? Of course you will be excited, but can you go back in the flashback and come up with something? Just to make you feel happy.
Nafisa, you're absolutely right. It is not easy. Perhaps now people have more awareness of the armed forces and things like that. But way back in 1980, 81, it was pretty much engineers, doctor, that kind of a channel. To choose the military option as a career, and that too from a non-military family. In fact, my father was in the corporate world and with the Tatas. So he very much expected us, all the three brothers, to go this path. And it became very apparent to my parents and to my own self by 84, 85, when I was fully entrenched Air Wing NCC cadet, that I'm going towards the military option as a career. Surprisingly, my parents supported me, and sooner everyone in the family got around to that, and I was called as the Fauji. Even Air Force was a Fauji for my family members, and that's how it's thanks to my parents, and I feel that was their blessings.
That's awesome, amazing. And how was the reaction with your friends? How they reacted, your age group, your friends, when you revealed that you are joining Indian Defense?
Yeah, in short, my friends in Mumbai, and mind you, Mumbai is another challenge for the military. Not many people from that metropolis join the armed forces. And I remember very clearly, out of my 20 odd friends, along with my brothers in that building, in this Mumbai suburbs, I was the only one opting for that. Uh, Pretty much everybody had, bifurcated into engineering or medicine or corporate world as a manager, and I was the only one left holding the flag that I want to go and fly in the Air Force. Mind you, the challenges are there at every step. Your medical fitness, your overall, persona is tested every day, and therefore it becomes a way of life for us to be really disciplined about things and keep that burning passion within, you know, and that's how people were excited. My friends, when they came to know of my selection, they were pretty much excited.
That's good. That's awesome. So, moving on to the next question. What was the basic training like? I mean, I know it's very tough, but if you can put some light at that time, how it was? What all feelings you had when you must be aware that yes, the training is going to be tough one or something like that, but then how you cope up and something you can come up with.
Okay, I will try and remind you of in 1982, Shashi Kapoor and Pankaj Nehalani had produced a wonderful movie, Vijeta.
Okay.
That movie was all about the Air Force training, the National Defense Academy, followed by the Air Force Academy, and life in the Air Force as a fighter pilot. It drew upon various aspects of the 1971 war, and the story was set likewise. But having seen that movie, we knew exactly what we were actually going to go in. And training was, let's say, very rigorous. You always had lights out by 10:15 in the night, and you had ready or wake up by 0500 hours, if not earlier. And you got ready and you did your missions, and there was briefings, studies, physical training. All in all, much the same happens even now. And it's great to have a bunch of youngsters all trying to, help each other and excel in the training aspects. So the life was quite busy, and we used to have one odd Sunday in a relaxed mode. But that 1 year of flying training and ground training, how it went past, and suddenly we were commissioned officers and posted to various fighter squadrons. And that's another aspect.
I just remember while you were telling about the training and all, I happened to visit by the grace of God, and my friend helped me. Dehradun, we have got that IMA, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I visited that. Oh my God, the cadet he showed me that they were having 25 uniforms for one day, I guess. In 24 hours, 25 uniforms was like, oh my God, what is this? And yeah, he has shown me the punishment areas, and they used to call bikes. I mean, they were having bicycles, which they, yeah,
That's
which they call as bike.
part of the physical training.
Yeah, yes, but amazing experience. I'm always a fan of Indian defense people. I mean, they have amazing persona, and they are highly attractive. They attract people, and we feel so proud to be associated and respect all the way. My God, you all are doing amazing job. I must agree to that. It's awesome. So moving on to the next question, sir. What are some things that you remember most about your, working days? I mean, the most memorable thing, something you would like to share with us?
When you asked me about my favorite quote, and I said, help yourself by helping others.
Yeah.
All through my fighter flying days, you always, when you were initially, gaining your experience as a subaltern officer, junior officer, and the seniors were there in the formation, they always watched out for you and helped you along. In fighter flying, I mean, in a formation, each one's task is cut out, and very much everybody's watching everybody's, well-being, safety, and focused on achieving the mission goals. And irrespective of day or night or weather, we flew. And I remember each day used to be a new challenge. And the most important thing that never, never goes out of your mind is how, irrespective of our differences on the ground, once we were airborne, it was always the mission and single-minded focus of all members, and the bonhomie and the esprit de corps of those 4 or 6 or 8 flying members in that airspace was to be seen, to be believed, and you felt always happy and proud that you were contributing to the mission. So each day was very satisfying, even if you had differences on the ground. Some were personal, some were professional, but each one had a healthy respect for the other person. And when we became senior and we were having junior officers to fly along with, we always made sure they were, guided well, watched carefully, and basically, yes, you're contributing to the overall national defense, structure.
That's awesome. I mean, I don't have words to say. It's lovely experience. So, sir, yeah, you already shared with me your experience, your story about the Siachen Glacier. Remember, Siachen Glacier, when you were posted there for 1 month, I still remember, and it gives me goosebumps. So I just want you to share it one more time with my listeners, because it's more lovely when it comes from the the story, the actual incident you have lived. It should come up from your mouth, right? So I just want you to repeat that one more time for my listeners.
Yeah, you talk about the Siachen Glacier. During our IATD days, I had mentioned it because that was important to bring out a life lesson. Frankly, I am one of the lucky ones who had this chance as a young officer to go right with the Indian Army on the glacier, stay with them at about 14,500 feet above sea level. The entire weather is a challenge to bear, and face every day. People lose their lives because of weather. Many complications can arise. And in that, we were manning these posts on the glacier. Even today, we do that to, have the strategic presence and control over that area vis-a-vis the Pakistanis. And that is the price the country has to pay. We were all, our clothing was from abroad, our food was from abroad. It was almost like Arctic conditions, and you lived together. I was the only Air Force young officer there, and the entire Indian Army battalion and that particular regiment was there. The incident which I explained to you was how the Indian Army, and that is where at a very young age, and I'm talking about 1989, I was just a flying officer, how the Indian Army holds posts irrespective of areas, be it the deserts or the jungles and the high Himalayas. December, January is the month where the weather pattern brings blizzards. A blizzard in the Himalayas at those altitude, winds howling, temperatures dropping because of the wind chill factor to minus 50 degrees Celsius. Ice particle, the snow comes in very fine ice particles, and it actually makes pinpricks on your skin, on the skin. And if you're not very careful, frostbite was just a matter of minutes away. In that scenario, one night I remember watching the blizzard and the snow flying around like a banshee from our hut, the prefabricated hut, and I see a ghostly figure coming slowly across that howling wind and ice, coming steadily towards our hut. And that time you wonder, who could it be? I mean, it looked like a real dark, form, fully covered. And sooner there's a knock on your hut, and when you open it and you pull this guy in, he turns out to be your orderly, a young soldier. And I remember asking him, Virender, what are you doing at this time of the night? It's around 8:30 and look at the weather. It's just, nobody could be venturing out. And he says, he opens his hand and takes out a plate. And it had a meal there or whatever. I said, what are you doing, Virender, at this time? He says, sir, you had told me in the morning that you're going to have this particular meal at so and so time. I've got it. I was stunned. It was a life lesson for me that irrespective of the weather, irrespective of the conditions, an Indian soldier will always execute the orders, will always execute the directions of his superior officers, even if it endangers his own safety and well-being. I never forgot it. Today, till today, whenever I talk to a soldier, it is with utmost respect and utmost pride to be talking to the son of the soil. And for centuries, such people have, been in the military and the martial races of our land. And yes, it was an eye opener. And it makes us officers even more careful about giving orders because we know what we say will be carried out.
Correct.
Thanks.
Awesome. I just love, I hope the listeners must also love this story. This is a real fact actually. It's not you have lived it, so I just wanted you to convey the same to my listeners. And thank you for that, sir. So moving on to my next question. What were your first few months out of the service? Like now you are not in the regular service, so how do you feel, and what all activities now you have taken up? What all hobbies you are into?
Actually, a very, very troubling question to answer because,
I know.
frankly, I could not envisage. I'm still coming to terms with the fact that I'm not in uniform or active service anymore. That said, we all have to move on, and there is so much else to do in life too. I'm for once taking, I've taken up golf as a hobby. I go for long walks. The building I'm staying in, we have formed a walkers and a runners group, and so we do little tasks, helping the society as such. The COVID environment that when I retired this year, we were in the middle of the lockdown, has created its own challenges, and the rigmarole of corporate life or any other job has become challenging. So basically, we are hunkered down. We are riding, sheltered, doing all those COVID restrictions and things like that. As and when the economy opens up, and I think it might just be a matter of months away now when we will actually, find the situation easing out. I'm sure that I will take up some job. Very keen still to do my training, aspirations, where we can coach young people into life skills and whilst learning ourselves a new skill every day.
Absolutely. That is what some spirit that keeps on going, and people like you inspire us to, never to give up and keep going. So that is what. So I would like to know, you have served the Indian defense for so many years, 31 plus 5.5 years, and then you were working with the late Pranab Mukherjee, our president, and then you were with our present Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi, and then you happen to be with Obama also. Barack Obama, President of US. So how was all this experience? You also were with Kapil Dev and then Amitabh Bachchan. So how was that? I mean, being with the celebrity, what type of feeling you got? I know it must be amazing, awesome, but then something like any incident, anything you would like to share with me and my listeners?
Nafisa, I could go on and on.
I know, and I myself am loving to interact with you.
Frankly, the selection of working in the President's Secretariat was a big honor and privilege.
Yeah.
The job was hectic. The late President of India was a workaholic, and he's been a stalwart of Indian public life right from 1969 onwards. So, as a President of India, he had his calendar full on a daily basis. We never counted Monday to Sunday. We counted days, 1st of November, 2nd of November, 10th of November. I mean, it was so many programs, and it was my job to ensure that the programs were conducted. During that time, of course, a lot of so-called celebrities came and met the president for a variety of programs. We had Shri Amitabh Bachchan, we had Shah Rukh Khan, Mr. Kapil Dev. We had foreign dignitaries, we had foreign heads of state, Xi Jinping, Putin. So those days were non-stop. But remember, for us, it was once again mission mode. We were responsible for creating and managing the time and the program of the president. We did exactly that. Mind you, this is the highest office of the government.
Yeah.
And things can go wrong.
Of course. Yeah.
Our job was to make sure things were on time and as per the proper protocol. And the faint smile on the president's face as he walked back from the program used to tell us that deep down he's satisfied the way the things were conducted. That was enough for us. Just that satisfied smile on Shri Pranab Mukherjee's face. In fact, one odd time when things go awry, he did let us know, and in his own stern way, but in his own way to tell us to improve our procedures and processes. And we used to incorporate them and make sure that the next time it was all seamless. Coming back, let me start with the president. Shri Pranab Mukherjee was an amazing person. He was diminutive in stature and physical stature, but his mental faculties was to be seen, to be believed. He had an elephantine memory, and whatever group was in front of him, whether it was scouts or ambassadors or foreign dignitaries, I have stood as part of the presidential retinue, witnessing such clarity and depth of knowledge. It was an education. And every group, every member in front of him went away enriched. His recall of dates and times and events of past was so spontaneous and so accurate that if he were to mention some date and you went and rechecked, that event would have occurred on that day also itself. It was an amazing education to see him. And I remember Shri Narendra Modi, when he got that massive mandate of 2014, he came to Rashtrapati Bhavan to have the first meeting with the president, and all of us were standing, getting the dignitary to meet the president. And I remember the Prime Minister telling Shri Pranab Mukherjee, when the president was congratulating him and saying, "Mr. Prime Minister, congratulations." Shri Narendra Modi said what actually encapsulates everything for Pranab Mukherjee. And he said, and I'll say this in Hindi, "Sir, aap to hamare guru hain." And I unquote. Basically, what the Prime Minister was saying, that he cut across party lines. He was a colossus amongst public figures, a true statesman. And I'm only feeling, privileged to have noticed and witnessed all those fantastic things that were unfolding in front of us. Coming to the celebrities part, Shri Amitabh Bachchan is, humbleness personified. It was just amazing to talk to him, where he was espousing his, um, you know, pride in the armed forces, and we were like looking at him as an icon. I mean, on whose films we grew up, and as a human being, we knew of the various stories. And he comes across as absolutely down to earth and humble person. I remember when briefing him during his Padma Bhushan, it was my privilege to brief him on how to conduct himself till the president and take his uh, investiture of Padma Bhushan. And he was with rapt attention. He had one or two questions, clarified his doubts, and it was amazing to interact. Shri Kapil Dev, when I met him, I'm talking about 5 years back, he looked so fit. I knew that he could bowl 10 odd overs then and there itself.
Yeah.
I mean, you had to see these people. Xi Jinping, when he came, was obviously happier times for India and China, and he came and met Prince Charles. Prince Charles did mention to me while we were walking and going towards the president's study I was to conduct him. He says, "You people are amazing. How you kept the traditions of the military." Because he had just gone to, like you yourself, to the Indian Military Academy for the passing out parade, and he was the guest there, and he saw all that, and he was so impressed with all our processes. So overall, Rashtrapati Bhavan has been an amazing, experience, great learning, and whilst we were there, we never knew Monday to Sunday, but we definitely knew the dates of the months as the programs were, formulated and executed. Uh, so overall, it's been an amazing journey, and one sees, learns, and applies himself. And there are individual memories. You mentioned the former president, or POTUS president of the US, Mr. Barack Obama. Once again, while walking with him, I was amazed by his physical fitness, and he was a couple of inches taller than me. He was tending to walk faster than me, and he was taking the steps two at a time. When we were climbing upstairs, the Rashtrapati Bhavan, to the president's chamber, he was literally taking two steps at a time. When he talked absolutely down to earth, and sense of humor. It was evident then itself. And he always had a direct eye contact with us, the military staff, and a firm handshake for each one of us. So overall, those are wonderful memories, and I just hope that through my relation, people get to see, tend to visualize how that office of the President of the Republic of India actually executes its tasks.
You literally made us visualize the things. I mean, I can imagine, I can see live with my eyes. I mean, how the things were happening. Very beautifully, you narrated each and everything. Whatever questions I asked you. So, moving on to, we are heading towards our concluding part. So, I want to know that what did you learn about yourself in your so many years of service? About yourself.
Well, fundamentally, I learned that the warrior creed, which we learned during our training days, which we nurtured on a daily basis, and this creed of the soldier comes from decades, centuries, millennia back. It is what keeps a particular nation, a particular people. It's what keeps the mankind on the straight and narrow. I learned that there are fundamental truths about military life which, if inculcated, can help anybody and everybody. It's a collaborative approach. It's a mission mode approach. It is a selfless approach. And it is nurturing the people below you. It is standing shoulder to shoulder with your peers. and it is a humble acceptance of the people above you, more senior. So you see all three categories: the seniors, the peers, and the subordinates. And with each, you had a dealing. And you also climbed from being a junior to middle level and to the senior levels. So the journey of my military life and my experiences have made me realize that this warrior creed is what keeps mankind going. I hope I have taught my juniors the same and while passing the baton. And I hope to do the same thing, a kind of an osmosis process in my civilian second innings, uh, in the coming years, where we learn to be collaborative, to be cooperative, to be mission mode. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. So, just a small thing I would like to ask you, like how you managed your family life. I know it's very, very tough. Now you are completely committed to work for the nation, for us, but then you have a family. I know that. And people like you are having their family. So, how difficult it is? How do you manage the things?
At some podcast, you can have a talk with the wives
Yeah,
and possibly the children.
yes.
It's it's rather challenging because especially when we deploy for a particular situation, and we have done that quite a few times. We go out for days, weeks, months on end. We even went for 1 year, if you remember, after the parliament attack in 2001.
Yeah.
Uh, Situations arise. Maybe today also our borders are live, tensions are there. The families cope. And to watch the ladies get together and do their own thing of, holding the children's hands, of continuing daily life with the Damocles sword of doubt and fear and uncertainty always there. It's amazing. It actually creates their own character. I have seen, and this I haven't mentioned, but I have seen people go. I've seen people who are no longer with us, and they were my seniors, they were my peers, and some juniors. They went in a variety of ways. There were air crashes, there were accidents on the road, they were just people going. And how we got together as one extended family and held the hands, it's an amazing thing. The only regret, if I may use that word, is that the years as a toddler when my daughter was the cutest, I was away from home. I see her photograph and I say, when was she like this? And that's the price I think one pays for, nation first. Thank you.
Yeah, that's really heart touching. But yeah, can't can't help. You have to choose either of the one. Yeah, that's true. So this question is very close to my heart, sir, which I'm asking you now. How do you see life and death now?
I'm very sorry. How do you see life as?
Life and death now. How do you see life and death now?
Oh, life and death. Our military life makes us inured to all kinds of situations. And willy-nilly, we know that something which other people, as we say, the civilian life, do not see it. But we carry our lives on our hands, on the palms.
Absolutely.
And when you did that willingly, you put your life at the stake. Uh, it teaches you how beautiful life can actually be. There is a saying way back in the Vietnam War that one American commanding officer had written so tellingly, and I quote, that a soldier knows life, more about life than the sheltered ones, cannot even envisage. Sheltered as in civilian life, unquote. Basically, what he says, and we saw it in our years in the armed forces, that you have to make death your companion, constant companion. You live to fight another day, and you make sure that your juniors and your colleagues are all there, together as a team, ready for any eventuality. And if situations demanded, we took risks and we did some really hairy stuff, but that was part of the job, and one had to push the envelope to make sure that the effects of your missions are felt as per the requirements. Those effects are your results. Those effects and the results that you get from each mission actually makes you look forward to the next day and to the next challenge. And so you put things at the back of the mind, and you train and you fly and you execute your tasks. In later years, when I went off active flying to training and staff jobs, those things also you did on a mission mode, knowing that whatever you did, whatever effects of those training notes or your writings would translate down to the squadron level. So people's lives are on stake. You cherish each day. You live life fullest each day. And that's how, at this stage of life, I realize that life and death are just two sides of the same coin.
True.
And one needs to be healthy and look after their own bodies and minds, and make sure that, and this I like to, really leave the parting words. One thing I've learned in my military life is never to allow your needs, daily needs, to become wants. Because once the needs go and become wants, then our greed will always be there to haunt.
Correct.
Thank you.
So that is why I asked this question. I think other than people who are in defense, soldiers, army and air force, navy, they only can define this beautifully, like life and death. We civilians, we can, but not like how you people have seen this more closely. You have lived that. So I thought of asking, this is my personal question, which I thought I need to know the answer from the right person. That is why I asked you. So sir, I can't end this show without your shairi, your couplet, which I love the most.
The shairis were those IITD times.
But still, at least one or two lines for me and my listeners.
I remember once I had written about childhood, and I may not remember all the words, but let me just try. अर्ज किया है कि पानी पिए खारा तो प्यास नहीं बुझती. If khara pani, as in salty, brackish water, we have had water like that in the deserts, and I'm talking about 92, 93. That time the pani used to be khara pani, and you drank, but the thirst was never quenched.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say that pani piye khara to pyas nahi bujhti. मन की बात अगर दिल पे उतर जाए तो याददाश्त नहीं भूलती. If something you remember from your heart, you never forget. पानी पिए खारा तो प्यास नहीं बुझती. मन की बात अगर दिल पे आ जाए तो याददाश्त नहीं भूलती. आप दुनिया में कहीं भी जाइए मेरे दोस्त, लेकिन बचपन की यादें की श्रृंखला कभी नहीं टूटती.
Wow, absolutely fine. बहुत अच्छा, very nice, sir. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Lovely. Means you are an amazing person, sir. I don't have much words to,
You are
praise
amazing
you.
to yourself.
Thank you, but yeah, I don't have much words to praise you. How incredible you are and awesome. Thank you. And we thought of making it 25 to 30 minutes, but it went on for an hour. I knew it will be. You have so much of stories, and I have so many questions to ask you. So it's fine. It's absolutely fine. And I hope our listeners will definitely enjoy this learning lesson.
I hope so too.
Yeah. So, any message for my listeners, sir?
Yeah, I just say that in the present context, we are just halfway through this pandemic. We have spent last 8 months uh, through very trying times and restrictive times. Remember, an equal time frame, 8 to 10 months, lies ahead of us before we finally get full control over the situation. Life will change, but remember, fundamentally, if all of us get collaborative as friends, family, neighbors, like all the challenges that mankind has faced in the last 5, 6,000 years, we will come through this too. So my only message is that join ranks, keeping socially, apart, the distance, wear your masks in public, wash your hands, sanitize them, and just bear the other next 8 to 10 months, and we'll be through. It's not difficult. It's not impossible. It may be difficult. It is not impossible. And sooner we will come out of it. The happier times will come. New paradigms of working, of studying, of growing up. Everything will change. And the next big thing, machine learning and AI are already becoming part of our lives. So the next level of technology migration post the COVID world. So the next decade looks very, very interesting. Thank you.
Thank you so much for giving your valuable time, sir. I'm really overwhelmed and thank you. Amazing. So with this note, I end the show today, friends. I hope you must have enjoyed the conversation, the interview session with Sharad sir, and definitely do follow him in his social media handles. I'll share that in the description, and keep listening to Basics to Bloom podcast. Apart from that, stay blessed, stay happy, and always keep smiling. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And yeah, I would also salute you, sir. You need this. Thank you so much for everything.
है दिल की आरज़ू